We're live.
We're live.
Hello?
We're live.
Hello?
So people can hear us.
Yes. Welcome today to another episode of the Home Assistant Release Party. Today we will be celebrating Home Assistant 2021.4.
I want a xylophone to do like a CNBC tune. Ding, ding.
Oh yeah.
No, I want a saxophone. I like saxophones.
You guys ready?
Oh,
We're already live. How can I? Why are you asking now?
I don't know what Bram is doing.
what?
Are you okay, Bram?
Yeah,
For
I'm okay. The cat
Boom.
Oh,
There you
pulled the
go.
cord out of
Oh
my
wow,
headphone.
our faces are big. Is this something we should like?
no, do the normal ones.
Yeah,
This one.
Yeah, that's
That's
better.
better.
that's better. Then I don't have to stay centered.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You still have to.
No, and I can.
Yeah. Let me turn off that light behind me. All right.
Whoa, all those comments.
Oh crap! Okay, I messed up, guys.
You missed that.
I'm in Firefox, not in Chrome.
So?
Well, I wanted to share like a tab, but like now one of you has to share.
You can re-enter.
Yeah, but I have to log in as well. Otherwise, I cannot mess with the controls.
Alright.
Noob mistake. Now we'll move on like this. I don't think I need it.
You can share your Chrome browser, right?
Yeah, but I want to share like individual tabs, maybe. No, okay, I'll log in. But hello, everybody. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Should we do another introduce round? Or do you
Yes.
think you know us by now?
No, we should assume that there's always new people.
That's
Okay.
So yeah, welcome everybody to another release of the Home Assistant Release Party. Today we just released Home Assistant 2021.4, which is the April release, and it is awesome. So
It's no joke.
it's no joke, no. Especially if you are an advanced user, you're definitely gonna love like a ton of the features that are coming in. We're going to discuss them all this next 2 hours. So if you haven't seen us before, my name is Paulus. I'm the founder of Home Assistant. Together with me on the screen are
Frank, you're
Frank.
first. You're on top.
Oh, I'm on top. My name is there. No, I'm Frank. I'm Frank. Good question, right?
And I'm Bram. I work mainly on the front end of Home Assistant.
Good.
That's
Well, there you
awesome.
go. So I think the first feature that we should talk about is analytics, because
Yes.
it's really, really cool. So in this release, we're introducing analytics, and so we used to have some partial analytics before with the updater, but that was broken. It didn't work well, and actually, like, pretty much like it was not useful. It was not used either. So Ludius set out to like create an improved version that's going to be released in this release, and it's fully opt-in. So if you set up a new Home Assistant instance during onboarding, it will ask. Or if you have already set up Home Assistant and are upgrading today, you can go to your configuration to general, scroll all the way down. If you're logged in as the owner user, you will be able to see the analytics, what you're going to send to analytics. So we have different levels. The first level is the basic level. This is just your Home Assistant installation type, your Home Assistant version, and a unique identifier. And this unique identifier is meant so we can deduplicate reports, so we actually know how many active users there are. This identifier is not used anywhere else, so it's purely only based here for the statistics. Then the next level, which builds on top of this basic level, is the integration. So it will upload all the domains of your integrations that you're using and the versions that you're using in case they are custom integrations. And the third level, which also builds up just on the base level, is it will send statistics. So these are very basic statistics. How many entities do you have? How many users do you have? How many integrations have you set up? And then the fourth checkbox for statistics, or for statistics, for the for analytics is crash diagnostics. So whenever an unexpected crash happens, it will allow you to opt in to send it to the Home Assistant core developers. And this is like currently only used for the supervisor. And the cool part about this is that all this data aggregated will be publicly available. No, wait, I say is publicly available. So, Fred, could you go to this is the dashboard I was just describing.
Yeah. With the options, you can check. It's the general dashboard in Home Assistant. So configuration and then general. And then you'll get like these options.
Frank, could you open the analytics dashboard?
Yes, I think I can change. No, I can use the same tab, right?
So the analytics dashboard, it actually adjusts if you are using dark mode or not. So Frank is using dark mode. So we just launched this, right? So there's 196 active Home Assistant installations. We expect this to get more data as, even during this stream. So actually, I would like to encourage everybody that wants to turn it on. Let's turn it on right now. It's being updated every hour. So if we all turn it on right now, in an hour from now, we should be able to see the updated statistics based on all the people that are watching right now that have turned it on. So I think the big question is, why are we collecting this data? And why should you opt in? And the reason for this is twofold. One, it will give people working on Home Assistant insight in which part is used. Are people all using operating system, or maybe they're all using supervised or container? That's data currently not known, so we also don't always know where to prioritize our efforts. The same with integrations that are being used. If we know that specific integrations are very popular, we might prioritize to make sure that they run more smooth or are better up to date. And so, if you go to the integrations tab, you can actually see the integrations that are being used. The total number might not be equal to the total number that you see on the first page, because not everybody will submit their used integrations. So some people only submit their version and their installation type. Other people will share also their integrations. Of course, if you don't share your integrations and we don't know that you're using it, it might not get the attention. But of course, we're open source, so if developers are there, then of course things will still happen. By default on this page, we are actually hiding internal integrations. So that's the ones that are pulled in through the default config. So these are things like device automation, Home Assistant API, analytics. They're not interesting because obviously if you're in this dashboard, you have the analytics integration enabled. Otherwise, you couldn't be there. Let's see, and then the second, so there's 3 tabs at the top. The other one is statistics. So this is just gives us a general, how many integrations do people have, how many entities. As you can see, the average number of entities right now is 473. I think that's partially because all our power users are using the beta or using have already updated. I think this average entities might go down or not. We don't know. So it will be really cool to see. But
I wonder. We discussed this type of data a lot. How many people would have how many integrations, right? How many would fit in this design? Is that this thing we're doing right now in the front end? Does it fit a lot of people, or should we do things differently? We can honestly answer those questions, hopefully, and take these things into account when changing things in the front end.
And so this website is publicly available. If you go to analytics.homeassistant.io, you can see this information. So it's not behind only for core developers or these kind of things. Anyone can see. And the reason we're doing this is because we're also going to use this data to help convince manufacturers. Because we end up talking to manufacturers from time to time and say, hey, we want local API, we want privacy-focused features. And they're like, okay, how many people are using our products? And we're like, oh, we actually don't know, because we didn't have this data. So right now we can say, or soon we will be able to say, listen, there's like 20,000 people in the United States that are using TP-Link, I think it would be good to make sure that those people are not being left in the cold. So I think it's going to be really useful also for us in trying to help convince other people to start using this.
Yeah, and on the installation page, which you see this big graph, we also have lower down a couple of bar charts showing the distribution on the top 5 most used versions, how the installation types we have are actually divided among our community, but also a nice map on where Home Assistant is used.
Yeah, this map is going to be exciting to see how it evolves.
Yeah,
Right now it's just 200 installations, I think, that are reporting in, like mostly beta 6 users. From beta 6 and newer are currently shown. So I'm excited to see what happens in the upcoming days, how this will evolve, which are actually our most popular integrations. Like, I'm dying to see that one integration that we all underestimate, and that is there, like somewhere in the top, and nobody actually like really give care to such a thing, right? So that might just shift priorities on some places. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Okay, I'm going to change my camera real quick.
We already have 52 users on the non-beta release. That's cool. So we have 52 now. How many do we have in an hour?
Yes. So once again, if you haven't turned on analytics yet, it'd be really cool if people opt in. At least the basics is really going to give us a good insight in how many people are using Home Assistant. And then in an hour, because the dashboard is updated every hour, we'll be able to see how many people are using it, and it will be really cool. So if you have just upgraded, go to configuration, go to general, scroll all the way down, make sure you're logged in with an owner user, and turn it on.
Yep.
Cool.
Should we show people where to turn it on?
Yeah. Well, is it possible? I don't know. It depends. Does anyone have like a dev instance open?
In my production, which shows, but I have a screenshot in the release notes. So.
The problem with the general tab is it shows your location, so you can just like throw it on the stream.
No, my location is in Amsterdam for my dev. So.
Yeah, we just got some complaints about that one.
What? Being in Amsterdam?
No, the default location was being used to also fetch the weather. And so met.no, which is like a Norwegian weather service, I think the government one, but I'm not 100% sure. And they provide the weather for everybody in Home Assistant by default. And so they were like, why is this herring shop in Amsterdam like getting 6,000 requests an hour, including like, why would 20 people in Mexico care about this? Like, oh.
It was really well. It's not funny. Like they really like were annoyed by it, obviously. But we took care of it. In this release, if you upgrade to it, like that herring shop is no longer being tracked for the weather. So that is kind of fixed. Like that's stuff we should fix. But yeah, this is the screen, by the way. I took it from the screenshot from the release notes now. But if you go to your configuration and then to general, there's in the documentation, in the release notes, there's also a link that brings you right to it. Then you have in the bottom these analytics options for which you can say, okay, basic and use integrations. And everything Paul has just like went through already. So check them if you want to. It would be really nice though. I think we'd rather have you clicking those than subscribe on this YouTube channel.
Yeah,
if you can.
¿Por qué no los dos?
But then hit save and then you will participate. The data is absolutely anonymous. There's a page describing on what data is. You can track in your Home Assistant instance if you want in the logs on what data is actually being sent. And all code of this is open source as well. So if you want to see what's happening, you can just check it. It's all open source, as it should be.
I
All right.
can't select questions. I see some questions. Can we see what info we sent and what's included in the crash reports?
Oh, sorry, that's really wrong. I don't see it.
It was below the one
Yeah,
you
this one.
selected, I think. Yeah.
Oh.
So the info you sent, you can see that in the logs actually, but that's all anonymous information. There's no passwords in there or whatever. That's not possible to be in there. It's just statistics about how many users or integrations or entities you have, not what they are, and just the domains. So no sensitive information whatsoever there. And the crash reports, that's just for the supervisor right now. That information is not publicly shared, so that's just for the core development team. So limited amount of persons that have access to that. And that should also not contain any password or sensitive information whatsoever.
It's done specifically for the supervisor for that reason, and not for Home Assistant itself.
Right. Well, it's funny because we have some of the crash reporting, like you can configure it yourself, right? The Sentry integration. And so with a bunch of core developers, we have like one account where we send our crash reports to. And Pascal has this, from Home Assistant Core. And Pascal has this one camera, and it is not properly like giving like a snapshot. So he has been submitting 136,000 errors for this camera because every 10 seconds, if he has for every UI he has open, he got an error. So yeah, there's we don't have enough events in Sentry that we can allow core developers, core events to come up even.
I just got complaints on my microphone, and I just noticed I'm using the microphone from my MacBook.
Oh.
Yeah, you sound a bit less good than normal.
Well,
I'm going to check mine is fine.
Yeah, yours is fine. Am I fine?
I mean, as good as it gets.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Love you too.
All right. Shall we move on to the next super cool, awesome thing?
What is it?
Yeah.
Tracing.
What?
Bram, do you want to go over this?
Oh man.
Where'd you start?
Tracing. Yeah. So we Eric, he implemented automation tracing. So when an automation is run, we collect all the information of all the steps, and then we create a trace of that automation, and we send that to the front end, and then we create this beautiful graph of your automation config, and we draw on that graph where what path the automation took. And you can click every node on the graph and see the specifics of that step. So the result and the template, and if a condition passed or not, and what action was taken. And you can also see the entities that were affected by the automation, like the logbook entities. And it's a great way to see if the automation does what you want it to do, and when it doesn't do what you want it to do, why that was. Takes away the guessing of a failed automation and building an automation. And Eric and Paulus did most of the work. Paulus did the front end. So maybe Paulus should tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, let me share my screen. All right, so if you have Home Assistant open and you go to your automations tab in the configuration panel, you see your automations. Now, for any automation that has an ID, so specified in its configuration, which is the default for the front end, and if you specify your automation in YAML, make sure you specify an ID with a unique identifier. It will be, we will store traces. And so, as Blom said, with a trace, we can go over and see what you have done. So the one trace I want to show right now, because I actually just restarted Home Assistant not too long ago, so I don't have any active traces except for my Auto Elgato. So my Auto Elgato automation is one where I run the Home Assistant app on my MacBook, and when I start streaming, so when my camera turns on, it will actually turn on my Elgato Key Light Air, which is my streaming light. So right now, you can see last triggered 11:57, so just before the stream. I turned on my camera, makes sense. So now if we press this button, this is the history icon, and you can see the information of this trace. And so what's actually cool about this automation is that I based this on a blueprint, the blueprint that's built in, the motion light, and I actually overrode it to say, hey, instead of a motion sensor, use my camera sensor. And so what is happening here, you see that the colors, the orange means this is what the path that my automation has taken. Blue is what's currently selected, so you can select other ones so you get more information. But what is happening here is that my automation is actually still running because I'm in this stream. So if we go to trace timeline, you can actually see, okay, it turned on my Elgato Key Light Air. Any circle with like a dot on it represents an action that's inside your configuration. You can include and click them, and you can see them on the left. They will be selected as well. So you kind of can see how the timeline relates to your configuration. And then any open circle are logbook entries. So this is states that have changed because of the actions by this automation. And so, for example, here you can see, oh, my Elgato Key Light Air turned on. Then this automation will actually wait for a state trigger, and it will wait for my camera to turn off, and it will actually then execute the rest of the script, which will be to turn off the light. So if we go to the step details, you can see in every step what it's taking. So for example, here you can see I have let me start with the trigger. So you can see the configuration of this node. So this is a simple state platform, like a state trigger. So whenever my MacBook Pro camera is in use, it goes from off to on, this automation will trigger. If you have multiple triggers, you will see multiple of these nodes, and you can see exactly the one that's orange is the one that was picked. Then when this trigger fires, you can actually see the changed variables. So the changed variables are, when you use template, you can use templates and automations, and you have access to variables. And so each step can end up adding variables to this, to what you can use in your template. So triggers will always write the trigger variable so that you have data available in templates, so you know what has triggered your automation. So in this case, you can actually scroll through it, and you can see exactly all the pieces of information. The state it went from, the state it went to, and you can see exactly all the steps, so you know exactly how your automation ran. And so also for every step, you can see the related logbook entries. So the trigger obviously created a logbook entry for triggering the automation. But if we go to the next one, you can actually see that this was a service to call on, to turn on the light. And you can see that the related logbook entry is the light has turned on. And of course, you can click on it and you get the information. You can just edit your light as normal. But what's also very cool, so on this step, sometimes we use other steps that are based on templates. So you don't actually know how these templates evaluated. But in our trace, we actually store the actual data that we called. So you can see here in the params, these are the actual service that was called. So if this was based on a template, it's not in this case, but if it was, you could have seen the actual data being used here. And the same goes for here. You can see that this wait for trigger is still waiting. Then at the top here, we have the step details. We have the trace timeline, which I showed before, which is just a timeline of all the steps being executed with the logbook entries merged in. Then if you go to related logbook entries, you just see all the related logbook entries as part of this automation. However, we have to say that finding related logbook entries is not 100% perfect in Home Assistant. So it might be that we show more entries than that actually are caused by this automation. So in the next patch release, we'll actually have a small warning at the bottom here saying, hey, be careful. Don't freak out if you see like logbook entries not related to this automation here. That can happen. Of course, you can see the full automation config as well. So we actually store the config the moment that the automation ran. So if you reload your automations and you're tweaking a trace, you can actually go and see how this, like you see the actual configuration as it was then and not how it is now. And what is actually cool about this automation is this is not automation that I run myself. This is an automation based on a blueprint. So this is actually shows the automation configuration with the blueprint inputs substituted in. And so we can also actually see this is based on the blueprint. And so we can see, my motion entity I've set to the MacBook Pro camera and use. The light target is the Elgato Key Light Air. And we can see those values being inside the configuration here, because that's how a blueprint works. Under the hood, it just creates a full-on automation configuration. And then, of course, when you're on this page, sometimes you just want to go through different traces, like, so you can actually, we by default store the last 5 traces of every automation. So when you go back, it loads the next one. You can actually see that in this case, I had my camera on for 29 seconds. So for 29 seconds, my camera was on. After that, it delay for null. In this case, this blueprint supports like waiting some time before turning off the light. And then it turned off the light. And the whole UI that we've built here, it's really cool. So you can actually you can refresh in case there's like new traces showing up. If you find a bug, if something doesn't work, if something is broken or whatever, or you want to share this with somebody, there's actually a download button. You press this download button, you download a JSON file that contains all the logbook entries and the trace of the automation, including the automation config and all that stuff. And this will allow us to, you can submit it to the developer saying, hey, this trace doesn't work. And I hope in the future that we could also have a sharing website where people can upload their traces to make it easier for people to help each other in like debugging why automations don't work. And then of course it's all like fully accessible, so you don't have to use the mouse. If you have like a node selected, you can press the tab to go to the next node. That way you can easily jump through a trace and see kind of what's going on. And then of course we also have the buttons, right? Like the buttons up and down to kind of go through a trace. And that's it for now. I mean, there's going to be so many cool stuff coming to this. I don't really have an advanced I do have maybe multi-trig automations, but they haven't. I don't know if they've run already.
I have one.
My living room. Oh, here. This is.
Look.
There you go. Okay. My living room light schedule.
Choose.
Yes. So my living room light schedule is a little bit more advanced. And this one I actually just straight up copied from Frank. So no.
Really?
Yeah.
From which one?
No,
that one. Yeah.
This is so. I think it's from your daughter's room.
For the heating.
For the heating, yes. So when you run schedules in Home Assistant, you want to make sure that your house is in like a certain state based on certain times. So this one actually has 3 triggers. When Home Assistant starts, when we reload the automations, or at specific times, I wanted to execute this automation. Then what's cool here is that we actually have a choose. So a choose allows us to take multiple paths, as we can see inside this block here. And then if we actually go, so we can click on the choose and we see which choice it took. It took the default choice. So a choose will test the condition for each path, if it should take that path. And if none of those matched and a default choice is defined, it will take the default choice. So in this case, you can see we actually did test this condition, but there's no check in the checkbox. And so the result was false. You can see we checked if we're in the right time slot. We checked if it was after 6, before midnight. And so if it was after 6 before midnight, we would have, turned on the light, but we didn't. So now, if we look at the trace timeline, you can also see it's very basic. The default action was executed, and we turned off the light, and it finished in 0.03 seconds. So not bad. Related logbook entries, it only triggered, so nothing happened because the light was already off, so it was a no operation. And I put this in a blueprint that I was totally planning on sharing, but haven't. So I just have it's a very basic. I just have to turn off time, to turn on time, and what to turn on or off. And so pretty much it's a very basic blueprint to just create some scheduling in my house. But it really shows nicely how the different triggers work. And so when it turns 6 here, it will trigger, but it will then trigger based on this trigger, which was the time trigger. And so then this line would have been orange, and this node would have been orange, and this one would have been gray. So each time as you go through your traces, the orange color will tell you which path is taken, what is how did the automation execute. So that's pretty much it. Did I forget anything, Frank?
I don't think so.
No. I think this really will help with there's so much data in this little view. As you all can see already, this little automation Paul's has here. It's just, I don't know how many tabs. The steps are not that much, but there's a lot of data in here, and it can be scary, and it can be quite intriguing, maybe. But in general, I think it really helps. If there's a problem, it will be pretty, well, I'm not sure easy to spot, but you will learn to read it, I think.
You at least have data to spot it.
You have data to spot it. That's what I was looking for, indeed. Thank you.
Right.
There is now something that helps with this. And if there's a way to improve this or make this better, if you have suggestions for it, this is the first version. And this is really complicated stuff. I've been watching from the sidelines, seeing this happening. It is complicated stuff. But it's really cool, and it's really helpful. I've enjoyed it already.
Yeah, I mean, until now, it was really like a black box. We told people, your automation doesn't run well, just check the logs. Or, we used to log every step. And this will allow us just to tell people, just go to the UI, just, check how it actually ran, which trigger triggered. And, in the timeline here, you can see this one just finished normally, but we actually have, many different states. The automation can finish because of many different reasons. An error could have occurred, or maybe it's marked as single, and it was or maybe as mode restart, it was restarted because a new automation was triggered, and maybe you didn't realize that your automation was firing actually 3 times. And now in the tracing, you should be able to see that. And so we actually have, I'm going to show you we have a component gallery where we kind of test out all the different states that our component can be in. And so this is an example of all the different ways our trace can finish. And so you can see blank. So we already saw the first one still running, debugged. I will get into that in a little bit. You can see your condition stopped because the automation stopped because the condition failed, because only a single execution is allowed. So this meant that a trigger happened, but we canceled it right away because another automation is already running. Maybe a trigger was stopped because the maximum number of parallel runs was reached. So some automations are allowed to run in parallel. And as a user, you can configure the number of parallel runs. And here you can just say, oh, it was I hit the 5 parallel I have configured, so this one didn't run. You can see that it was aborted. That happens if you're reloading automations, then we're just canceling every automation that's currently running. If an error occurs, for example, this obviously right now you cannot have variables that you reference in your templates are warnings right now. In the future, they'll become errors. So you could see that this is an error that happened. But even if a crash happened because of anything, you will be able to see that in your trace and canceled, which I think is the we couldn't find any other reason, but it was stopped, so we just say it's canceled. And generally, if you see an exclamation mark, something like unexpected happened. If it's red, it's like error. This is like really bad. But let me get back to this one that we haven't really touched, which is debugged. So this is not a feature that is live just yet. But if you are familiar with programming, then you know when your script executes, right? Like you can debug it. And when you debug it, actually means that every step in your automation, it will pause and it will only continue until you say continue to the next step. And that way it allows you to inspect the variables at every point. You could even, generally what happens is that you mark a breakpoint somewhere in your script. And then when the automation runs and it hits that breakpoint, it pauses and it allows you to inspect everything, maybe change something in the state machine and move on. So this feature exists in the backend already, but we have not had time yet to make it available in the front end. So this is definitely something in the future, maybe next release, maybe the release afterwards, we'll be able to get this working. But the idea would really be like, for example, if you want to step through your conditions and see which condition is actually like firing or maybe influence the outcome of a condition, you will be able to do that right there. So that will be really, really cool. Like that would even be the next level, right? So instead of just looking at what happened, you can actually look at what is happening real time and step through it.
That would be cool. If somebody could add it to the Visual Studio Code extension for our system, I would be, wow. I had like, oh wow.
Yeah, I mean that technically it's possible to hook into the debugger of Visual Studio Code, but then it's gonna be
it's just fantasizing, right? Like we're all like as developers, users of Visual Studio Code all day, so we're used to the debugger functionality of Visual Studio Code. I would die for it personally. That's more for me, right? I can think of like a lot of people here watching right now that are like, I'm not sure if I need that. Probably not.
So yeah, that was kind of the gist of tracing and debugging. Debugging, just again, it's not available in the UI. It's not going to be available in the UI this release. Maybe in a future release, 1 or 2 months out. So yeah, let's see some questions. Yeah, so one thing that we see come up a couple of times is that you need to have an ID specified for your automation. Only automations with IDs will receive tracing. So it's not difficult. If you are an UI user, there's already an ID, so don't worry about it. If you write YAML, just type ID : unique ID. And then the unique ID, of course, has to be unique. So whatever you want. Someone asked, how do you access this page? Because they maybe missed the start of the stream. You access it by going to configuration, going to automations, and each automation will have a new button that says show the history.
Yeah. It's mainly ID, and a lot of people are like amazed.
We need to change the tooltip when there's no ID. It talks about automation.yaml not working.
Looks like a copy paste error somewhere.
Yeah. We'll get that fixed.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, there's this automation UI. It's been like weeks has gone into just iterating, and there's just so much data available with tracing, and then we want to bring in the configuration, and we want to bring in how the influences the state right now. So there's a lot of stuff happening there.
Luckily, this was the longest release cycle probably this year. Well, the longest possible. So this was like a month and a week or something, just because how everything like went. Like February was short, so there was a lot of time to like get it somewhere.
Yeah,
I think, and even that, this is impressive in the time.
definitely.
Well done. Yes.
I think we posted the stats earlier. 837 pull requests went into the core of 832. So that was an average of 23.7 pull requests each day that have been merged, which is insane.
Just for the core,
Yeah,
not even counting
that's true.
documentation, front end, whatever else.
Yeah. So here, somebody, Carlo is asking, can we expect the database to grow a lot more due to storing of the traces? No, we only store traces in memory, and only the last 5, and they will disappear when you restart Home Assistant.
Yeah.
And then some people have said, can we turn it off? Right now, it's not possible to turn it off because of the way it's ingrained in the automation engine, but we have not noticed any slowdowns at all in all of our testing.
So there are a lot of questions about database migration. It takes some time, especially if you have a large database. Please be patient.
This mainly affects people that are using MySQL, I think, or MariaDB. So if you have a database and it's large, be patient. Really be patient. Don't pull the plug. Don't do weird stuff. Just go sit and take something to drink and watch us or something, start chatting, and it will be over in a whip, I promise you. But it can take some time. And it's for the better. Really.
Yeah, so one of the things that is being fixed for MariaDB and MySQL is that somehow the default, we use SQL Alchemy, and anyway, the driver that was being used did not, how to say it? MySQL used to not support sub-second time storage when you store date timestamps, and so that is what SQL Alchemy supports out of the box about the old behavior of MySQL. But MySQL since 5.7 or something, I'm
5.6
or 5.6 has added support for sub-second storage of date time. So, for example, 0.5 second, 0.3 second, and we realized that this was an issue when we were doing the tracing timeline, because all of a sudden logbook entries would appear above the action that called it because the seconds were truncated off. And so the ordering wasn't correct. And of course, just losing data is not cool to begin with. So even, as we, Home Assistant's history is meant to accurately store what's there. So we had to fix this. And this should also help in if we ever do machine learning, right? The more accurate the data is, the better we can predict.
Yeah. So be patient.
Yes, be patient.
Have a bit of patience. So it's really it's doing its thing, and it will come through.
And there's work on the way, but that won't help you with this release to bring the front up before or during the migration, so we can inform you about the migration.
Yeah, that's currently not possible yet.
You are not wondering where your instance is.
Yep. We fixed it almost for all cases except for this one.
Right. Well, but there's a PR open, huh? For this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not sure. I've seen an update on it. I've looked at it and talked about it a bit. I think that he is still doing some changes. But
yeah, there's still work.
It's coming.
I saw a long list of commits, at least. So.
So the goal is to have the front end always instantly available as fast as possible to inform you of everything that's happening. Just like we did in the past already, changes that if you start the front end, it will show a message in the bottom that Home Assistant is still starting and not everything is available. We will try to do that even before the database changes. So we can also say something like, hey, we're migrating the database at this point. Right? So that's the goal.
It's a good goal.
Yes. I guess so.
Is this also, by the way, the release that we have our new onboarding?
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh.
Fancy onboarding.
So probably most people watching don't remember our onboarding, but it used to be a white page with some form. We ask for your name, a username, password to create the first account. We ask you to tell you where your instance is based, the name and your preferred temperature unit, your elevation. The next step is now analytics. So we'll ask you to opt into analytics. And the final step is setting up your integrations. But what we have in this release is that we have really cool like particles in the background. So I know. Let me see if I can quickly whip one up.
Destroy development environment and let's go.
Yeah, I had another demo ready, but I'll just do this first.
I can remove my storage.
No, I do. I have a setup for it.
It's really cool. And the Linux stuff is also part of onboarding now as well, right?
Yeah, so we'll go through the onboarding for the people that haven't seen it in a while. Let me just. There you go. So this is how.
Look at that.
Whoa. It does look very cool.
Yeah, so I actually had been looking at, but I couldn't really get it working. But I thought it would be really cool that as Home Assistant is being onboarded, we're already discovering stuff in the background. So it would be really cool if you kind of pop those logos up among the stars in the background, where you see like Philips Hue, Sonos. You're like, wait, I've got that one. Hey, I got that one. But yeah, I can, let me just quickly go through onboarding.
Now I have to onboard more often.
We should just add more places, add more particles. Yeah, so this is the new analytics dashboard. You can say, hey, basic. Every time where you configure analytics, also during onboarding, we have a link how we process your data, just so that you can quickly see how we process your data, what data is being processed. Yeah, this is, of course, then you're already done. Boom. But yeah, beautiful stars, which is also really new in this release.
We can show the same screen when we're migrating your database.
Yeah, but the problem with that, we looked into having the onboarding show up again for migration. The issue is that not every user is allowed to see the onboarding because they're not like an admin or an owner.
No, I don't mean onboarding, but when we're migrating your database, we can't really do anything else in the front end.
No, but we can.
Everything else is not started.
The database is actually based on, it's just for history, right?
Yeah,
so if we could just disable history and just move on.
I read the PR, and the only thing that started is front end and the migration, and nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah, we're adding the supervisor to it, just in case if there is something wrong, you can access the tools. So that's the challenge right now, because the supervisor also brings in entities as of this release. So possibly history.
Oh yeah.
And if you're starting without the history and the logbook, you miss data from things that happen at that moment.
Right.
But you also miss that when we're not running. But okay.
I'm thinking now.
But then Home Assistant didn't do it.
You could temporarily buffer that in some kind of like file or something.
Yeah.
Database. Just thinking.
I don't know.
Doesn't make sense.
Something for next release.
I want to talk about something this release. Are we on the next subject already?
Sure.
Like this automation stuff is cool, but this release is dedicated to the advanced users. In case people haven't seen the release notes yet, it's titled for advanced users, because this is a pretty darn advanced release. Like this automation debugging is, well, no joke. One nice thing out of this release that I'm sure will make tons of questions, and I've already seen questions pop up, is undefined variables and templates. And I think we need to talk about that, just to clear that up and tell you what's happening here. So I'm prepared, as you can see. Right?
You're building up the tension, right?
No, I'm not building up the tension. I'm trying to think real quick on how am I going to get out of this one. Maybe I should just go to my screen here and use the release notes as
you can do it in DevTools, right?
I can do it in the DevTools, but it will also need the notification. So let me first show the notification that is happening. It could be that you're seeing things like this as of today. There's a template warning in your logs, on a variable that is undefined when it's rendering some kind of template. And actually, if you see a lot of these, don't panic. Everything is still working as before, except Home Assistant will not tell you. So this is nothing new. There's no new logic. There's just a log for it now that tells you something is wrong. Instead of previously, Home Assistant wouldn't tell you anything. It would just go on and ignore it and thank you, bye-bye. And you would have no clue something might be wrong. So actually, this is a good thing. But if your logs are full of it, it's kind of hard to think as a good thing, right? So that's why I think we should talk about it a bit. So what is it? So there's this little template I had put into the documentation and release notes. It's a little template that prints my variable. And let's say I made a typo, like in this one here in the bottom. It's a little typo. It's hard to spot, but there's actually a typo in there. And previously, Home Assistant would not tell you anything. And right now, it will show that warning. And then you know there's a variable somewhere that I mistyped, does not exist, does not have a default, or it's not there while I used it. So that's an issue, right? And that's what this message is about. And there are certain ways to resolve that. For example, by setting a default. So you can say, okay, if my variable is not set or not defined, then make it 10 in this example here. This will happen a lot. I'm sure this will have a lot of people looking at their logs and seeing these messages and thinking like, what the hell is going on here? Well, this is it. It's helping you finding issues in your automations, typos or things that are not used. And you should fix them, actually.
Yeah.
Definitely fix them.
And there are some, like I know that Zigbee to MQTT has some of these issues, and they're triggering some warnings. But in the case of Zigbee to MQTT, there's already a pull request open that will fix it on the Zigbee to MQTT side. So soon you will be able to have that fixed, and you will not see any warnings caused by Zigbee to MQTT anymore.
Yep. Yes. So that's the template in default. I'm not sure if I could show something in the template window. The error would not show up there.
Yet.
Yeah. No, not yet. Nope.
True.
So that's the undefined variables and templates section of this release, which is helpful. One thing to note, by the way, in 6 months, so that would be a long time, but in 6 months, this warning will actually turn into like an error. So your template would, in that case, become problematic. So you really want to fix them. Besides, it is really an issue.
Yeah.
You should fix.
I think that the one place where most people are running into it, I think, was with attributes from a state that doesn't exist. But we have helpers for those. So
should I pop one up?
yeah, if you know them by heart.
Yes, I know.
Right, so we have some helpers that help you to check an attribute of a state.
So states, let's say, for example, I see some people do this. States dot climate dot living room dot attributes dot temperature. This works.
Nice one.
So this is one way to do it, right? And I still see people do that, but this can become problematic in case living room isn't available yet or the temperature is not there. So one of these dots, one of these sections is undefined, then this whole chain falls apart and then causes one of those warnings, right? A better way to do this is to use state attribute, then climate dot living room, and then say I want the attribute temperature. Here we go. close it. And this will absolutely be the same, but it will handle weird cases for you. It will handle errors. The first one doesn't. So if you ever see these, you don't. I've also seen people doing this. I think it works actually. I've never tried this one. That works as well. Don't use the one below, state attribute. And the same is for state itself. I also see things like state.
Boom.
That's the good one. Yeah. And then the default, which we've seen. So for example, let's say, maybe that's a good one to see if you have like my variable. But this one does not exist. I've now put an error in my logs, by the way. If you want to have like a default, it's an error, but I can also specify what the default should be. So if my variable isn't set, it will return 10. That's the default.
Right, and generally you always want to have like defaults so that like then at least it's you know the expected outcome of your script and don't leave it up to undefined behavior.
Yeah, handle undefined, like handle unexpected behavior. That's kind of the thing, right? Ensure that if something unexpected happens, your things still work and work as expected, even if something unexpected happens.
Yeah. At least now it's also going to be easier with tracing to figure out unexpected behavior, but it's still better to just not have any unexpected behavior.
Yep. So that's the template stuff.
All right, we're coming up on the hour, so analytics should be updated pretty soon.
It's 5
Isn't
minutes.
yet.
Oh, it's 5 minutes past?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Shall I discuss another topic that we have?
5 minutes for.
I mean, we'll see if I go over it. It's fine.
Okay.
Application window. Okay, so let's see. Does this work? Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So one of the new things this release is trigger-based template entities. And it is very, very early on, so bear with us. But the idea is that by normal, I mean, the state entities, when you use a template platform and you define for example, a sensor, you can extract data from other states. And when you do that, Home Assistant is smart enough to see what other entities you are referring to from your templates, and will make sure that you are, whenever one of the source entities updates, you immediately get that your template entity is updated. This is great because it means that if you want to have a sensor with a correction, or you want to create a switch based on a sensor with your custom actions, that it always is as fast as possible. However, there are situations where you want to have a automation trigger being used, like you want to have more control over when your template entity updates. So in the past, we saw this with birthdays, workday sensors. People wanted to have that just update once a day and not like run all the time. And so our solution for this is trigger-based template entities. So these template entities will only update when a trigger fires. And this trigger that are available are the exact same triggers as are available for the automation integration. So this can be time, this can be state, this can be MQTT, this can be webhook, the sun, anything you want, you can use now in your entities. And to make it more powerful is that these, obviously when a trigger fires, it has trigger variables. That's we just saw it in the tracing earlier this stream. And so those trigger variables will be available to your trigger-based template entities. So for this release, we only have sensors implemented. And I have a demo here that I'm sharing right now, which is using a webhook trigger. So a webhook is a URL that is on the Home Assistant API that is unauthenticated. Generally, they are very long strings of like, which pretty much are its access token in the URL. And any data delivered there will trigger this automation. So, for example, I have a template defined. And so let me just one step back. The trigger-based template entities are defined on the top level of the template integration. They are not defined as the platforms as all the other template entities. The state-based template entities will also eventually be configurable through the top level, but we're not there yet. So right now you can, it takes a list. So this is like one config section for a template in which you define one trigger, and you can define multiple entities that all relate to one trigger. And so let me first walk through why this is useful and how this works, and then I can explain a bit more about why the configuration is shaped like this. So first, in this case, I've defined a trigger as being a webhook with the webhook ID, my super secret webhook ID. This means that any data that I push to Home Assistant's URL /API/webhook/ my super secret webhook ID will be passed as trigger variable and be available to my entities. So right now we only have sensors. So I have temperature and humidity defined. You can see them. They're very simple. We just take the JSON that's in the trigger. JSON is a data format. It stands for JavaScript object notation. And we will render the temperature and the humidity. And if you can see on the middle, I have Home Assistant open. So right now, the values are unknown because the trigger has not fired yet. And you can see that we're rendering like webhook temperature, webhook humidity. Now, I'm going to fire a webhook. So I'm doing this as an example through curl. But for example, if you have, there's so many applications that can fire webhooks, including if you use like something like a microcontroller, like an ESP8266, and you haven't converted to ESP Home yet, now it will be very easy to get data into Home Assistant. So, or you can do it from your script. So what happens is that in this case, I run a curl command to say, hey, I'm sending JSON, and I'm sending it to this endpoint. And the data that I'm sending is temperature 5, humidity 34, as you can see on the right of the screen. Now, when I hit enter, you can see that this data is being pushed to Home Assistant, and boom, it instantly updates this data. So now this data is in Home Assistant. And this is happening super efficiently. So this trigger fires once and makes the data available to both the temperature and the humidity entity. And of course, if I update this data now, where I put like a 2 in both front, then as I press enter, boom, it's updated. And these are normal entities, right? If you open them, you can see that it's the same as entities that we come to expect, like in Home Assistant. So these are the same template entities as that we're used to, except that they're updated and triggered by triggers. And as you can see here, we're actually defining a list with one trigger, multiple entities. And in the future, we expect to have binary sensor here, etc. Switch, maybe. And one of the things that I'm foreseeing in the future is that if you have an application which sends a webhook payload, you could actually define all the entities based on the webhook payload and create it as one configuration. Now, that could allow us in the future, if you, for example, if you would add blueprint support to templates, you could, for example, say, hey, this application that sends these webhooks, here's a blueprint, send the webhooks to this address, and boom, you create 10, 20 entities, and they're being updated right away without actually, requiring an integration. And later, of course, when we see these blueprints work well, it shouldn't be difficult to actually convert it to an actual integration. That way that people that want to work on this part, they can work on this part, and then when integration authors come, they can, help convert and get it into Home Assistant officially. So this is probably going to be the easiest way to store state from triggers now. Like it used to be that you could create input helpers like input boolean, input date time, but they always show the UI as showing the user to control them. And in this case, they're just sensors. The user sees them as sensors, and they are controlled by webhooks. And I think this is going to be really, really exciting. Right now, there's a few things that are kind of still confusing. For example, on the top level, it's not possible to define non-trigger template entities. So those still go in the old way. We're obviously gonna try to align all that configuration, but it's gonna be quite some effort because there's a lot of different template platforms, etc. But this already works. This is super cool, and well, I hope people like it.
There are a lot of questions in the chat on I love webhooks and why do I need webhooks? It's because you're showing a demo with a webhook, right? So what this is, it's a template, a sensor template with triggers, and you can use the trigger data. In this case, Paul shows a demo with a webhook, but you can also trigger on time if you want to update like your sensor entity on a time-based pattern.
Yeah, like we just saw in the tracing, every trigger creates a trigger variable, and we can use that trigger variable in our template.
So every trigger that an automation has, you can use to trigger the update for this template and use the data that is available in that trigger, no matter like what. So like Paul is now looking up something really quick here.
I don't know if this works, but I'm just like, just that's kind of like a second example, right? Like yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's important to know. Like the webhook feature is probably the strong side of this, but you can use it for a lot of other things. It's really the creativity in here. It's not limited to the webhook stuff. I think that's the thing I wanted to emphasize. All right, that's a good one.
That's a good one, right? They should always put time in quotes because YAML is gonna bite your ass.
Yeah. So
yeah, this is something that could work. And then, of course, it's convenient to, if you do these kind of things, is to also have a trigger at Home Assistant start.
Yes.
And I'm guessing the syntax. Is it this?
No, event_name, I think. Oh, now I'm doubting. Thank you.
something documentation.
Why don't you have the extension? You're in Visual Studio Code.
Home Assistant trigger.
Oh, it doesn't support
it's
this.
event start. Paul is correct. It's not event name.
Oh, then it's the normal trigger
that
has an event name, which is confusing.
Yeah, so, I mean, should we run this? Should we see if it works? Oh, I'm losing my screens.
Let's do it.
Live on the stream, building stuff.
Is it auto-generated Lovelace?
No, this is my demo. You're right. Oh my God. This is the worst. Don't worry, I'm editing it out of the screen.
Oh, it's a YAML.
No. I'm having.
Okay, you can. Oh, okay, whatever.
No, but this browser inside Visual Studio Code is based on screenshots. It's super slow. Yeah. So the current day is 7, which is April 7. I'm in. Yeah, I'm in California. So yeah.
That's correct.
So yeah, this one would update every day and every time you restart Home Assistant.
That's actually cool. Like a little piece of code that does that. If you need that, I've seen quite a bit of weird things people trying to do. No, I don't need to. I hate Siri sometimes. It triggers whenever I don't expect it. It does that.
Yeah, turn it off.
How do I turn it off? I got a new phone, by the way. I went from iPhone 7 to like the iPhone 12. I have troubles with some things. I don't know. Like it's the same, but it's not the same. Maybe I should have upgraded iOS 2 in all those years. But, I don't know.
Hey, you were stuck in iOS back in the day time, and now you're
iOS. I was. This was quite a jump, actually.
So yeah, this is the new trigger-based template entities, and expect a bunch more updates to that as we build it out as well.
Okay, you can stop now. We have analytics update.
Whoa! Is there an analytic update? Is it like
Okay,
What were we on last time?
196.
Yeah, just under 200. Okay. Who's gonna share it?
Oh well, I thought you, Bram.
Oh, I can do it. Wait.
John says, with my new iPhone, I will be sticking NFC tags everywhere. Yes, probably yes. I don't know. I haven't tried them yet. How do they work? By the way.
Okay.
Now the iPhone experience is not
If
ideal.
someone
That's not
accepts my
cool.
screen sharing, then
Oh, sorry.
847.
Boom. All right.
Zoom a bit, will you?
Well, that makes sense. So there's 801 people watching the stream, 847. So that's, I guess everybody turned around. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's appreciated. Definitely.
Yeah. So we have 70% using the operating system. So we have some bets going on. I think I'm on the winning end.
Well, you're the one that plays the most out of whack one, so this is like even way beyond your.
Yeah, this is way beyond mine. But you had it below 50%, and I was. Paulus also above 50, but Paulus didn't give an exact one, so it doesn't count.
I think I did 42% because it was the answer to everything, right? So.
No, but I think right now the operating system people and the supervised people have it easier because they can just hit update. While if you're, so I think we'll see that. But we also see only 85% is on the actual latest version, right? There's still 13% on the beta.
Yeah. Or they have not reported yet, or they have not updated.
Right.
Yeah.
So our country, we're getting more countries in. That's cool. I should scroll. So entire Europe is present.
Oh yeah. Even Iceland checked in now. That's good.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
I see a little dark spot in the middle. It's Germany and the Netherlands.
Yeah. 76.
Oh wow.
138.
Thank you.
We're the second country.
Yeah. America first, Netherlands second.
Right.
I'm not even far behind. 166 and 138.
Yeah, but this is. I think this is all too early to draw any conclusions.
I'm not drawing any.
We have to wait at least another hour.
At least another hour.
Statistics. Oh, our entities didn't drop much.
Hey, look, our one user from Morocco says hello. We have one person checking in from Morocco on the analytics. So that's Reda. Hi, Reda. Look.
Yeah.
That's him.
So much for anonymous data in this case, right? That one is him. He is it. That's him. Still not know anything besides like.
Hey, I miss China. Can't we send data from China?
No, so it might be that the Chinese users haven't updated yet because it's midnight.
Time zones, yeah.
It's time zones, so that definitely is one thing. The other thing, we use Cloudflare, so I don't know if Cloudflare is blocked.
Yeah. I was wondering that because I would expect China in there.
Yeah. So for the people that are only tuning in now, like for the analytics, you can visit this page yourselves, analytics.homeassistant.io. This is a new feature in Home Assistant 2021.4, which we released today. It's opt-in. You can submit basic analytics. You can also submit your integrations. You can submit statistics, which is the total count of users, integrations, and entities. And we're going to use this data to see what people are using. We're going to be able to use this data to convince manufacturers that we are active, an actual big project and not just some open source hippies in the basement. And we hope that we can actually convince manufacturers to add more local APIs and take us more seriously. I think that's my goal, at least, with this data, but also, of course, the development priorities will be helpful.
Did you notice in the integrations how much ESP Home is used? Like, it's pretty high on the list.
That is very high. But I also, I think that right now we all have our power users, right? This is
Yeah,
like
that's true.
2 hours since the release. So of course, if you're using Home Assistant and you're done with automating all the current stuff, you probably end up like getting some microcontrollers and playing with ESP Home.
Yeah.
Which, for the people that have not seen the news, 2 weeks ago, Nabucasa has acquired ESP Home, which is also us. Like the people on the stream are actually all employed by Nabucasa. And with the idea is that we're like the current maintainer of ESP Home. His real life was just taking too much time. He could not like put any energy anymore in the project. So we work with him and we have acquired it, and we're gonna a new employee is starting later this month, Jesse Rocks, who is a current core developer ESP Home, and he's going to work full time on ESP Home. And the goal is to make ESP Home even more awesome. I think that there was like there were no full-time employees, and since the person in charge wasn't always like there to make decisions, it was kind of like lagging behind. But we hope now it gives a full focus to make it as powerful as it can be. Oh, well, there you go. Jesse's actually in the stream. This is Jesse. He's from New Zealand, and he's gonna join us. So yeah, we'll definitely talk more about ESP Home in the future as Jesse starts. But we have some exciting ideas also to make it even easier to use. So that'll be awesome. So definitely, if you haven't played with ESP Home yet, give it a shot. Yes. Yeah.
I
What
wonder
else?
how many installations we will have in another hour.
Well, we don't know because we'll be offline.
So if you're updating right now, like just enable this stuff. It's really helpful for us. It's fun to watch for everybody, by the way. I think it's really interesting to see this data. But it's public. It's open source. You can check it. You can see what it says. It's anonymous, and well, you don't have to take my word for it. You can actually check it. And well, it can help us define priorities and convince manufacturers and all those kinds of things. It really helps steering the project. I think that's the most important takeaway from this thing. It defines priorities. I think it's cool. Things we never knew already.
It really is.
Boom, boom. All right. What else is there in the in this release that we haven't touched upon?
Oh,
Selectors, the scripts.
yeah. That is a nice feature, though.
But
Yeah, it's absolutely sorry. That didn't sound that enthusiastic, right?
No, it's
So-
a great feature, but for people that use scripts.
For people that use scripts, yeah, this is it's actually not like it is a big thing, but it's not a big thing. Explaining this right. So actually, Bram and I were talking on chat, like, hey, this is actually like the scripts input fields from scripts are really like the fields that you can define for scripts as the variables that you can send into scripts are really pretty much the same as service calls and blueprint inputs for that matter. And actually, we learned that everything was already in place and that we needed a couple of lines of code to tweak. And then we had UI selectors and UIs for scripts all of a sudden. And that's kind of nice. So we added that to this release. So just as in blueprints, and just as you can do in the service tab for other services and such, you can now define the UI elements that goes along with the fields you put into your scripts. And that brings the UI to scripts. If you share it or then use your script in automations for the UI, you can actually have those nice little checkboxes and pre-filled data. I think it looks really nice. It
Definitely.
just brings it one step further.
yeah, Now we just need a nice UI to share and import scripts, and done.
That's don't spoil the beans. But yeah, I think it's a nice little thing. It's a pretty advanced thing because you have to write scripts. That's the first thing, and then you have to use script input fields as well, right? But I think it's fitting for this release then in this case.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, if you like share the script with someone, and you add those fields and you add those UI selector, the one using your script doesn't have to know that much because like he or she can just use the UI in that case, right?
Yep.
So that's actually pretty friendly.
Are we showing it in the automation editor as well? If you have selected this.
Yes.
Yep.
Nice.
So if you call the script in the automation editor in one of your automations, you get the same like little checkboxes and controls as you would see with all the other services we introduced in the last release, I think. It was the previous release. Yeah.
Right. Man, it's going to be so easy. Everything.
Yeah, I think it's a nice little touch to see these little things in the UI. I don't know. It feels more slick. But,
Yeah. I think what's happening is that we're building all these cool little bits, and per every release, we're bringing these bits to other places, right? So now selectors is coming to scripts. Tracing is going to come to scripts probably. Blueprints might be shared for like templates or scripts, and these kind of things. It's just we're bringing all those things together, and triggers can now be used for not just for automations but also for templates, and as we start allowing using, like, we don't, when I add triggers to templates, I don't have to invest like time into building triggers because they're already there, right? When we add selectors to scripts, it's just linking stuff up. So I think there's a lot of stuff left to be linked up, and each of those are like really cool.
Yeah. And all our little like, I think it was 2 years ago, you showed like on the State of the Union, those Lego, the Tuplo blocks, the Lego blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can build on top of it. I think the UI selector here is a really good example of one of those blocks we have in the home system that we are reusing everywhere. And the same for things like the triggers and conditions and actions. Those are really universal building blocks we're slowly rolling out in other places. And I hope for blueprints we can do the same actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, should we show automation filtering?
Oh,
That did I do this release? Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to switch to it? I can switch to it if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, one of the things that has been like requested a lot over time in all kinds of like different variations, like we've seen many ideas around this, is a way to categorize automations. So if you're a bit like me and you're a bit like really consistent and almost paranoid on the naming, then the search already worked a bit because I can search for attic and see my attic automations. But people want to have folders or tags, or what have we seen more? Folders, tags, areas, labels, buckets, I don't know, all kinds of like ideas passed were given on how to organize all your automations and other things. But actually we have those tools already in Home System. We have areas and we have devices, but we have entities themselves as well. So we were talking I think it was even during like normal social talk on how could we solve this, but we have those tools and can we use those? And Bram added something that we can now, here in the top right, filter your automations. You can filter them by area, device, or entity, and it will show the automations that are affecting those things. So this means if I select the attic area, it will give me the attic automations. And not just because these automations are in the attic area, but because the automations hit entities or devices that are in the attic area. And I think that's a really cool, different take and way on approaching this, because the automation itself doesn't have to be related to that area to show up if I select the attic area. I'm not sure if I have an example of that, by the way. I'm thinking about maybe system.
You're too consistent in your naming.
That's probably a problem because
Yeah.
I didn't have this. I really wanted really consistent in my naming and my behavior. But I could, for example, say, okay,
Nice devices.
yeah, thanks to an experiment I'm running with CPM at this point. But I can also hit devices. So if I select the attic ventilation on my attic, it will show two automations that affect that device. So there are two automations changing that device and touching that device, and they show up now. And I think that is really cool. Something you cannot achieve with a folder or a label is actually seeing what it affects. Right? I think that is really cool.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like this kind of information already existed in Home Assistant, but it was kind of hidden, right? Because if you go to devices and you go to device information, there was always a related tab, and the related tab would show, well, this device is part of this area, these entities come out of this device, and these automations hit it.
Yep, it was all already there.
Yeah, so here you could always see automation scenes scripts. But of course, this requires you to think ahead. Do I want to see a device to go to the automation? Do I want to click on the entity, on the area? And it's nicer to just be, I want to find the automation. So of course I'm going to the automation tab, and then I want to enter that data. So that's there now. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. So this is not just limited to automations, by the way, because, well, all things are building blocks in Home Assistant. So if we go to scenes, which I do not use that much, as you can see right now, you can actually do the same.
Nice.
I think you can only use kitchen.
I don't know. These are actually not. These are actually not used scenes. I don't do scenes. These scenes I actually created. They're Dutch as well, as you can see, which I normally don't do. These scenes I created for a screenshot for a Dutch magazine that is coming out this month. That wanted a screenshot in Dutch. So I actually use my production system because I actually have data in there, and I actually didn't clean it up. That's well, I don't know. So they're still here, but they're unused scenes. But good for showcasing, right? But this also works for scripts, I believe. So that's again really nice. I'm really confused by having my screen twice. I'm still clicking on the wrong script. I use one script at this point. But yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome.
It's a nice little touch, just like not just a folder, but I've given you all the automations that have this area or hit this device or affect this entity. And I think that is just to learn. I don't know. Is it simple? I don't know, but it's just. I think that's way more effective.
Hey Frank, do you use Z-Wave.js?
Yes.
So Z-Wave.js has gotten a great update as well. So now I think if you go to the devices of a Z-Wave.js device, there will now be, there's more Z-Wave information available, but there's also a new button called Configure Device. And if you go to Configure Device, you go to a new page.
There's a bug here.
What?
There's a bug here.
Yeah, not everything is resolved.
There's a bug here. There's definitely automations.
Are,
in this device.
are you using templates, Frank?
No, this is This is the
Oh, this is the one I copied.
yeah, that's the one you copied. So this is not showing up.
How is it referred in automation?
I don't know yet. I'm not going to open it as well at this point. But we're definitely going to search why. But
We'll
it
figure
should
it
be
out.
here.
I know we stop processing at automations. We don't drill down deeper because we get a lot of nonsense if we did.
No, but this automation should find it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've seen some weird things that were because of that. But we'll figure it out someday.
By the way, just to intermezzo, some people are asking what magazine. So there's 2 magazines coming out this month. The Computer Idee and I forgot the name.
PCM.
PCM.
Two Dutch magazines. So Computer Idea or Computer Idee would do a page on my add-on stuff, and PCM is actually going to do a special on home automation and home assistant.
Yeah.
PCM is planned for the next month, I believe. It's May, the May edition, and Computer Idee is this month.
Yeah. Okay, can you click on configure device?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So if you now go here, and you can Z-Wave we're talking about.
Z-Wave,
just
yes.
in and what the hell is going on? Z-Wave JS. If you now click on configure device, you can now configure the device.
Yeah, so these are all the configuration parameters are backed by the database in Z-Wave JS, and it allows the user just to specify all the information that this device has. So do you want backlight enabled? Do you want battery to be reported? When this LCD has a timeout, etc., etc.
Yeah, this is really cool. It's so nice. All the descriptions, all the options. This is the best UI I've seen for Z-Wave devices yet.
Yeah, I also noticed that I probably need to change this one because this is not UK edition specific. But the thing is really, really cool. This is helpful.
And if you're an advanced user, there's also 2 configuration services available that will actually allow you to change these settings through services, so through automations. One of the ways people are using that feature right now is that you can actually, when you have a lock, you can set like specific lock codes. And so, for example, you could only enable the lock code that your cleaner is using during the times that you expect your cleaner to come, so that they cannot just enter the house if somebody else gets access to that key outside of like a specific time slot, for example.
There's a question here which I'm going to. There's one. What about configure device? Well, that's what you're looking at right now, by the way. So that's the device configuration for Z-Wave. But how likely is that the migration wizard will happen to help users move from OpenZ-Wave to Z-Wave JS?
It is likely, but there's no time or like a roadmap right now. So it's definitely, as Z-Wave JS gets more mature, and I think we're really like to a point where we can say, wow, this is mature. I think that, we already wrote a migration from OpenZ-Wave 1.4 to OpenZ-Wave 1.6. So we have the knowledge in-house of how to do these migrations, but it's not easy. So we're going to try. And yeah, that's the main thing. I think we have the things in place already. Like we have some code in place that we can reuse probably, but it's still going to be a little tricky.
Yeah. If you want my opinion, my personal one is just do it. Like have like a day in your weekend, like a Sunday or something, and make it the worst day ever. And after you're went through it, you will be happy. I promise.
Right. Well, so the good thing about Z-Wave is that actually the pairing information is stored on the Z-Wave stick. So you don't have to run through your house and repair everything, right? It's very easy to actually switch. The only thing that you'll lose is that the entity IDs that you have to reset up the entity IDs. So depending on how many device and entities you have that might be more or less work. That's the only thing.
It was 10 minutes work for me. No big deal. Come on,
One
guys.
device.
You can do it. Five devices. And for the people that are wondering why their automations with central scenes are no longer working, there was a breaking change for Z-Wave.
Oh, right. Yeah, you should definitely read the breaking changes this release for the Z-Wave. Indeed. That's I promised someone to definitely mention that. So thank you, Ron, for fixing that. I was actually trying to bring up the release notes again to see if we missed something. Did we miss anything?
Somebody asked if firmware update is coming to Z-Wave.js, and Charles, who's one of the Z-Wave.js developers, says yes, it is on the roadmap. But yeah, these things that takes time.
So we had automation debugging. Epic. We had home system analytics. If you haven't enabled it yet, please do. Undefined variables we talked about. Automations and script filtering we did. Z-Wave.js we just did. Trigger base we did. UI selectors. I think we have everything except for maybe the little ones. Oh! Yeah, this is a nice one. If you go into your profile, you can now select a number format from the system you'll use in the UI.
So this is stored in the browser, right?
Yeah.
No, it's actually stored in the backend.
Okay, but
Really?
is it user specific then?
Yeah, user specific.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Things I learned today.
Your language is also stored in the backend. User specific front-end data.
Oh, right on. Yes. Too many things going on.
The supervisor has now entities and stuff. So if you go to the integrations, there's the supervisors now listed there. And it actually provides entities and information on add-ons and updates and versions and those kinds of things. If you're interested in that information, there are a lot of people having scripts to retrieve that information, but the data is now there. So you can enable those entities if you like. They're disabled by default because it's quite a bit of information. But the information is now there. So that's kind of nice, I think.
And I see questions coming in about number formatting. People also want this for time format and date format. And we now got everything in place, so those will probably arrive soonish.
Yeah, I have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. Well, the base is set up now, so.
Oh, KNX has a unique IDs now, by the way. That's kind of cool. If you're invested in KNX, you probably have KNX. You have probably a big system in general. Like it's not like you have one light or something. So if you're on one of those systems, you can now put your entities into areas and stuff. So that's really cool. Yeah. I think that's all nice little things together. This is the release. Oh, we have new integrations. And there.
Analytics.
Analytics, no way.
What was it about analytics again? Where can you find it? What should you do with it?
You should enable it in the general section of the configuration.
But the reason you should enable analytics is because it will allow us to convince manufacturers that we have a lot of users and that they should invest in local APIs and privacy-focused features, right? It's obviously cool and everybody can see the data online aggregated on analytics.homeassistant.io, but it's really going to be used to just say, hey, listen, we have 20 or 50,000 users using your product inside this country or across the world. Make sure you don't let them down. And I think inside those companies, they are way more companies that create products are very they want to sell. They want to build features that the users want. So if we can show that there's a lot of users that want these features, it will also be easier to convince internally that they want to build that feature, right? If there's no data, then who are you convincing?
Charles asking if you refresh the analytics page, will the update then go faster? Yes. Just refresh and keep doing it. It will go faster and faster. No, it's updated once an hour.
Yeah.
So
once an hour.
Yeah, we update statistics once an hour. Initially, we said 24 hours, but I know that in the beginning, everybody was going to be like refreshing. So we set it to 1 hour. I think we can keep it on 1 hour or 2. I think it's not the end of the world. We just need to. It's just for cost optimization. Whoa.
Hey,
why are you the bigger one now?
I don't know. This way.
He's the big boss.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Every 60 minutes, indeed.
Are there any other questions? Boom, boom. Case is asking about, are you experimenting, Frank, with Zigbee to MQTT?
Yes.
You want to elaborate?
Yeah. No, look, it's on a level where I'm actually personally not happy with any, like not 100% satisfied with any of the Zigbee solutions we have. It's mainly because they're all have their pros and cons, right? There's no like, and I had two. I had decons. I had ZHA for a long time, and I'm now trying Zigbee to MQTT just to see how that is. And I give it a proper shot. Like all of them have been running a couple of months, and I'm now running Zigbee to MQTT for I don't know a couple of weeks now. I did a couple of PRs on some devices and fixed some stuff to help things in my network, and I'm okay with it. And my first impression is that it's pretty stable, and the device support is actually pretty darn good, except for the one that I needed to add manually. But the integration with Home Assistant via MQTT is not that optimal for my taste. It's all like MQTT is great protocol, but it's not that like integrated into Home Assistant to an ideal level. So, am I happy with Zigbee to MQTT? Yes, with its support and how it works. No, with the integration level of integrating into the Home Assistant. That's not. I'm not happy about that. So, I'm not sure of the good solution yet.
Well, that's the limitation of Zigbee to MQTT is because it goes over MQTT, and MQTT can only do so much of integrating into a Home Assistant.
Yeah.
Right, that's
so
where...
for what it can do, it's pretty impressive, but it's not... There's a lot of stuff coming in that I maybe don't want to have, or things that I don't know. It's just like you already saw a couple of like weird things showing up, like IDs that pop up when during an update. I don't know. I'm not happy yet. I'm not happy with the other solutions at all, but that's because I'm a bit neurotic. I just look for that perfect solution, and I'm probably going to learn that I have to decide. Yeah.
Just build yourself the next one.
Yeah, so let's build a new standard. No, but
yeah, once we go all to chip and you throw away all your Zigbee devices.
Well, if chip might solve it, right? But,
well, no, chip will not solve your like you have to buy everything new, right? Which is just not going to happen.
And it just sucks that you can't refresh it.
No, but honestly, originally I started out with Z-Wave because Z-Wave was the reliable one, the certified one, and all standardized, and that all looked good. But then over time, Z-Wave wasn't that Z-Wave wasn't that like, stable within Home Assistant. It was annoying during restart at the time, and that kind of drove me away from Z-Wave. So I kind of slowly phased out all Z-Wave devices and replaced them with Zigbee. It actually never got really satisfied with Zigbee either. Now we have Z-Wave, which is really working really well in Z-Wave GS. So I'm slowly moving Z-Wave devices back into my home. But it is. I don't know. I have a big mixture of all kinds of devices and manufacturers, and I'm not that picky or sticky, but I still want everything to work. If that makes sense. No, it doesn't. But still.
Right.
We'll see. I'm just keeping on this experiment for now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the world will ever stabilize on just one protocol and just throw away all the other ones. And even then, I mean, you can see that with USB. Like, yeah, but how many things are going over USB? Let's do their own stuff. Like, so.
So really, honestly, the most stable devices I have in my home are the ones that I created with USB home, like the plugs I flashed, and the chips, the USB chips. WLAD is also pretty darn stable, but it's just those devices, like the DIY devices, actually, that I'm like they just work.
This works.
Especially ESP home just works.
It's amazing, right?
It is.
For the people that haven't tried ESP Home, give it a shot. You can buy like ESP8266 or ESP32 chips for like a couple of dollars from China. Flash it with ESP Home, build your own devices, or buy devices that you can flash with ESP Home. It's really fucking cool.
Jay's asking about Shelly. I do have a couple of Shellys. I think Shelly is a great alternative.
You can also flash them with ESP Home.
That was my next sentence. Yes.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't. The Shelly integration itself is super solid now. I mean, the team has been really working hard on it, and it supports local push, right? So it uses UDP broadcast, so it's not as stable as ESP Home, but it is. It's good. Yeah.
Yep, it is. I gotta say, indeed, my ESP Home and Shelly devices are one of the few that always work.
Yeah, I think Wi-Fi is just like a more, mature. Like that's part of it. We don't have to worry about it integration, right? It's not like a Zigbee stack. Like the thing with Z-Wave and Zigbee is that they're optimizing so much the battery that they don't always, the communication and the mesh network and all those things make it a lot more complicated and a lot more places where things can go wrong, including like in Zigbee land, people not following the spec, where like you have to send a ping every 30 minutes or else you get lost, forgotten from the network, and some devices don't do that in time, etc., etc. And with Wi-Fi, everybody just connects to your router and then that works.
Well, but I also have Wi-Fi lights, and I have to turn off the power off for them once every, I don't know. So it's not every Wi-Fi device that works flawlessly.
Interesting.
I see a couple of people asking about not seeing the analytics options. So you have to be an admin and the owner of the system. If you do not have, I'm not logged in with the owner account, then you won't see it. There is a change coming, I believe, Paul. So I've seen you.
Yeah, it's got to be just an admin setting.
In the next batch release, we will move that to admin instead of owner.
But also make sure you bust the cache. So it can be that like the way the Home Assistant front end works is that we use like a service worker, but it pretty much means that we will not be able to update your front end fully until you close every tab that has the front end open. So if you have 3 tabs open and you're only on 1 tab updating, you will not be able to see the latest front end.
Wi-Fi just works except when it doesn't. Thank you.
No.
Absolutely true. 50% chance there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, and well, Ganesh 42 is right. Like Wi-Fi devices are more power hungry, and they will take. I mean, that's of course you need to plug them in.
They're not suitable for battery powering.
Or you get a heavy.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Shelly work with like some Silicon Labs, like the latest technology. They had like a Wi-Fi motion sensor that can do a year on the battery, but it is a huge device because, well, it contains a huge battery. So yeah, if you compare it to like the small, tiny motion sensors that Zigbee makes, that's probably not worth it. All right, are there any more questions?
The keyword is
I
shiny.
just saw somebody saying that like Ubiquiti rocks. Well, if you use Ubiquiti software, they had a breach on January 11, so make sure you change your passwords and set up two-factor authentication. It came out last week that they were not completely transparent about how much was breached, but it was really bad. So if you haven't, change those passwords.
That's a good takeaway to close up the stream.
Change all your passwords.
Change all your passwords. No.
Yeah.
Can we get an icon search feature? Johnny, I've been like nagging those two guys here about it for ages. Please give me a
I would like one
icon.
too. I think I don't like the materialdesignicons.com website. It's so slow to kind of like start up. I use an extension for my browser.
The browser extension is freaking awesome.
Yeah. Well, we should
I
just
use that
embed
all
it.
the time.
Build it in.
Yeah. I'll look into it one day.
Next release, right?
Yeah. You mean tomorrow morning?
Come on, make a promise on stream. No.
1 hour, right? 1 hour.
Oh, 1 hour. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
What's that extension? I think that is one thing we should answer, by the way. We should share that.
It's called Material Design Icons Picker. So it's just their official extension, yeah.
It's on their GitHub, on their website. I don't know.
Leon says it would be nice if you could group automations. Hey, mate, you might want to watch back on the stream or check the release notes. We actually added features to filter down automations on different ways. Instead of grouping, it's now more dynamic based on things like areas or things it touches. So that's kind of nice. Like, I think there are multiple ways to now look into that. So.
Yeah. And one of the features that from Nabukasa, for Home Assistant Cloud, that we don't see enough people using is text-to-speech. There is really, really cool text-to-speech in as part of Nabukasa. I don't know if I can show a demo, but we have it uses Azure natural neural network powered voices, and they sound really natural. And there's like tons of languages and different genders available to like say any text that you want. And so you can put in your automations, you can like use it to troll your kids or whatever.
We tried to show it before, but we couldn't make it like audible. Can you do that?
Yeah, no, not easily.
I can do it, I think.
You can?
We should, yeah, I can.
I have text-to-speech with emojis too. Oh, that would be fun. I would know.
It will speak it out, right? When you do like a fire truck, it'll just say fire truck.
Really? Wow.
I think so. But yeah, there's a cool... if you are a Home Assistant Cloud subscriber, which you definitely should be, go to configuration, go to cloud, scroll down to text-to-speech. You can pick your default language. Plus, there's a try button to try it out. I use it all the time, the try button, to kind of mess with my kids.
Can you enable my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, Brian Clapton. You can play any text on any supported media player.
On the... Do we hear that over the...
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Nice. So we get a bunch of languages. It's a lot.
Can you show some other English accents?
Yeah. Which one do you want?
The Indian.
Indian. Female or male? You want a male.
Hello, Bram Crackton. You can play any text on any supported media player.
Nice. Then we can enter any text we want. So who got the text for me?
Just throw in some of the release notes.
Wow.
Nabucasa Cloud TTS is really awesome.
Now make it Home Assistant Cloud, but for the rest is
Sorry.
yeah. But yeah, the cool thing is also with the target, you can actually specify.
Home Assistant Cloud TTS is really awesome.
Yeah, you can specify any target, so you can go say, "Hey, this is play this on this speaker or whatever."
Home Assistant Cloud TTS is really awesome.
Yeah, as you can hear, the neural network-based voices are really, really good. Like they do a good job in like just making it the real deal. Bram's turning off his remote UI. Yeah, I was gonna say to you, like, hey, you put your remote URL on it, but okay.
Whatever. I don't choose it. Okay, new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the voices are great, and even in like this is just English, right? But also in Dutch,
It's really good.
Well, it's really good in Dutch, at least. That's the one I can judge, right? So
Yeah. No, so there's a ton of languages. Can you open the language picker, Bram, and go through it a little slow so people can see it?
Yeah, let's start on the top. We got various German, English, a lot, various Spanish, various French, Dutch, very important for second most used Home Assistant country.
is it still the case? Opening analytics.
It's not updated yet. And a bunch of languages I don't understand.
Japanese,
Korean, Indian, I guess.
No, Hindi.
What are those?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but there's no language like Indian. They have like over 100 national languages, I think.
Yeah, but they all have the same country code, so I don't know, whatever. But it's freaking amazing. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I think that is the end of the stream. I think we made it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. If you haven't missed the beginning of the stream, we introduced analytics today that we're going to use to gather usage data that to convince manufacturers. This is opt-in, and the basic usage data is just your installation type and the Home Assistant version number. So please enable analytics. That way you can, or we can help convince manufacturers to really support more local APIs. You can you can enable it, configuration, general, and then scroll all the way to the bottom. Make sure you're logged in with the main owner account. Then, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Something.
I got used to that.
If you're on Facebook, like our page. If you're on Twitter, make sure you hit that follow button.
No, we should just replace this with, please make sure to share your data through analytics. No liking anymore.
No, and of course, if you like Home Assistant, like ESP Home, subscribe to Home Assistant Cloud by Nabucasa.
Oh, somebody's saying analytics in 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah, we should. Like, we have more.
That's okay.
Let's
Okay.
close it
3
with that
minutes.
one. Let's close it with that one. It's absolutely true. 3 minutes.
It's true. Okay, we'll do one more round of analytics.
Okay, what are your guesses?
I think that we already have
47 now.
No, but we already have everybody on this stream, right? There was like 800 people. At the
No,
beginning.
people were still migrating their databases. And
Yeah.
I call it 1,200.
Yeah. And somebody's saying, please make text-to-speech work with Alexa as well. Sadly, Alexa does not give us an API to play text-to-speech streams or any media on it. Google Home devices do, so that's what we can use. Sonos works with it, but Alexa doesn't. So I'm sorry, we cannot.
I hear 1500 in chat a lot.
No, 1200.
1341, 1600, 983, 1200.
Okay, so
I think
Ludius,
1200
the author
is,
of analytics, he says that it actually might take a little bit more. So
we have to talk. Before.
We have to talk even more. Oh yeah, we're gonna keep talking until.
Well, we have time for another question.
Oh yeah.
So I have a question for you, Pauls.
Okay.
You went a bit you went back to the States, right?
Yes.
And you have your home, and you now actually start using Home Assistant again.
Yes.
Oops. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. So I showed my automation dashboard earlier. I have 4 automations, mainly around the living room lights. And then I actually also have some offline automations. I tweeted about it earlier. I brought back from Denmark these electric candles. And these electric candles have this option. They're either off or they are on for 6 hours, off for 18 hours. So that means that if I turn them on at 6 in the evening, they'll be automatically turning off at midnight. And they repeat that pattern for the rest until the battery runs out. So without any home assistant involvement. So I have my candles and I have some other lights that are turning on. And then I have my streaming light turns on. So it's going pretty well. I'm still, where is it? My whole table is full. I still need to get better at migrating to the new card tag reader because I have, and it's kind of annoying, my old tag reader setup for which I have a shit ton of cards, right? These are all wheels on the bus in Dutch, whatever. And those cards don't work because my old tag reader was based on a non-NFC but a different RFID standard. So I need to buy more cards and print them. So that's something I'm kind of working on. I'm just, looking behind me. No, it's, I got an Elgato Stream Deck, so I've been tweaking that. I have that inside Home Assistant now.
And I was Stream Deck. Cool.
Yeah, I bought it. Yeah, because it's I use it to see the times across the world, like New York and Europe, and I use my output source, so I know which headset is going on. But yeah, it's not really Home Assistant related.
There's a Home Assistant plugin for Elgato Stream.
Yeah, I have it. But I don't really need it because my lights are just automatic now in the office. Yeah. Man, what's happening? This analytics. It's a cliffhanger.
Stream decks. Oh yeah, Stream decks are pretty nice. I had a couple already, which is not so nice, but still, they're nice.
Boom, boom. Now, I finally it was funny because we just moved into this house and I plugged in the Zigbee controller and then Zigbee temperature sensors started showing up. And only after a month, I found them in the boxes. But they were already reporting, right? So I knew somewhere in a box I had 3 of these sensors. So, but they're still on my desk because I don't know which one is which one.
Put one in the fridge, then you know.
Yeah, it's true.
Not easy.
Man, everybody's just hitting this analytics page right now, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should be able to handle that.
I started writing on a project for the summer.
Oh, right. Weather station.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this is going, but it's good. I'm not sure. I just thought it wasn't a little bit of sunny weather. It was I want to do something outside. So let's make a sensor outside. And then you thought a weather station is pretty quick, something on the radar, right? And then you're thinking but yeah, so many people did a weather station. I want to make it a bit more challenging for myself. So I was thinking, what could I add, right? What could I add to a weather station possibly that is crazy? So I'm currently working on a Geiger counter but also I found a way to measure the IR radiation from the sky to measure like cloud coverage and stuff. Lightning, you could measure. So I'm just like in a state where I'm collecting all the freaky shit I could collect
That's
with a
cool.
weather station that is not just temperature and humidity. Of course,
Are you gonna
I should
put
do
an
that as
e-ink
well.
screen so you can, when you're outside, you can read it?
I'm not sure. At this point, it's just like collecting what I could do with it. I think I should write that
Yeah.
down. The same is for like it should be solar powered and it should have a battery that it charges
Right.
itself. And should report to Home Assistant and all the sources. I'm currently just like experimenting and researching what could I measure outside quite possibly, and on any level, even sound pollution or like anything.
Right. So some of these sensors are so expensive. Marcel and I, we were looking at air quality. And it's like $30 just for the sensor.
So I bumped into a really cool sensor. It's a Doppler radar, and you can
Okay.
actually use that with the ESP Home probably. But there was no price listed, so I actually found that thing really cool, and I actually went so far to find out like how can I get this thing, right? But like then I got like an indication price, and I was like, well, I'm not going to pay $1,500 for a little sensor, but it's a Doppler radar, right? That would be cool. But
That would be cool.
not for a fun extreme project, even extreme weird sensory project. But yeah, it's like I don't know. I'm currently playing with the idea to make like the ultimate DIY outside weather station monitoring thing. I don't know. It might be a Frankenstein project, as many people already say. I have no clue where this will end. Maybe it will never be alive. Or maybe, I don't know.
What's happening with these analytics?
Is it there yet?
No.
Yes!
Ah.
How long?
Well, he said that aggregation will take some time, but these are like 1,200 rows, right? Like,
Aggregation should not take long.
No.
Maybe distributing it to all the edge.
yeah. Oh, hey, Bram, I see a question coming in for you.
What, where, who?
Nate Whistler is asking, any chance of doing yearly plans with Nabokasa?
Yeah, there are plans.
Yeah. For next in a year?
No. Yeah, within the year.
No, but I think
No,
with
we
an,
are working on overall for a payment system at Nabokasa. So you don't see much of that, but that's also things we work on. And when we're finished with our new system, so migrating the old system to the new one, we should be able to add things like yearly payments and resellers and whatever we can think of. It should be more flexible and we can add whatever we want. But first we have to migrate our old system that is really not flexible at all to the new system. So when it's
that's
done,
coming.
but the problem is we find working on Home Assistant more exciting than working on our payment system. So it's slow. Progress is slow.
So Ludius is saying that the generation is done, but it has to, I guess, distribute it to all the Cloudflare places.
On the edge.
Or the edge.
Caches, all the edge caches need to be busted, I guess.
Yeah, so I don't have the new analytics yet.
That should take 30 seconds.
Man, we got tricked into like just keeping the stream going.
And now we have to sit it out.
Louis?
Well, I was like thinking, like it was. I think it will take another 8 minutes, maybe, if I compare it with last time. The data was
No.
there. I don't know.
In my experience, was always like 9 past.
Okay, then
There are now like 600 people watching the stream and they're all refreshing this page.
Yeah.
yeah, but there are so many rows. It just takes a long time now.
Yeah, so people that want to read along This is the URL. Analytics.homeassistant.io. And like we said before, what we're gathering installation data so that we have a better case to make to manufacturers to support local APIs, to show that there's a whole world of people that want this data.
That it's not just us 3 that want it.
Oh,
Yeah, somebody asked, what are we working on for 2021.5? We don't know. We live day by day, week by week.
Picker.
The icon picker.
You are. That's fine to know. No, I'm working on. I've been working on blueprints for scripts, so that's quite.
You are.
Well, after you've done the icon picker, you could maybe help me with the UI. But no, yeah, basically some blueprints for scripts. That's the only thing I've done for the 0.5.
Yeah, I'm going to extend the trigger-based template entities. That should get some love, but yeah, there's no big plans right now. I mean, well, the debugging is coming as well. I mean, all these features that we work on, some are just like in the pipeline a bit longer. They're just kind of cooking, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're there. So
yeah, we tend to do like a big release and then smaller releases and then a big one again. It's kind of like it's not that we plan for that, but it's general how it just works. Like you have a big release and then a lot of get squashed, and then you're busy with that, which means that much of things are not being worked on at that point. So that's not, yeah. So that's probably reality as well, right? For the other.
Yeah. Charles is asking, how long will that system show up on analytics? I think that all data are 60 days. Yeah. So after 60 days, the record is destroyed.
Well, that's a good one. I think our analytics already died.
No, Andrea was saying plot twist. It has already updated, but nothing changed.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we do now?
We wait. We promised now.
Yeah.
Bram is dedicated there.
Blake is asking, can you make it a setting to persist automation traces? Well, right now there's a download button, so you can download your traces.
But no upload button.
There's no upload button.
I think I would love to be able to store longer or more, but to actually store it maybe
in a database, or on file.
In a NoSQL database, in an add-on.
No,
but yeah, I think there's a lot of automations happening. There will be a lot of data written.
Yeah, but I think for a thing like a Raspberry Pi or an SD card, you probably don't want that, right?
No.
But if you do not have that limitation, I think it would be nice at times to be able.
Right.
Like especially for the release notes today, I was looking for something that was presentable bit, and then I had to have like the luck that something happened, or recreate one, which I did, to make a screenshot. But in general, like maybe you're just, what happened there today? Shouldn't this be? And then maybe you're already too late, right? So
would be nice if it would survive a reboot. If you just write it to disk on shutdown or something. I don't know. The last 5.
Yeah. I don't know. Wait, yeah, Ludius, can't you just like access the raw data for us? Like the viewer count is already dropping, right? Like everybody's like, okay, these people are just sitting here, just like running around.
Ludius can get into the database.
So much pressure.
You should be able to get to the data. We just want the total number of installations.
No, and the breakdown by installation type and country.
Yeah.
And all the other information on that.
Pedro is asking, is there a solution for devices that don't memorize their state after a reboot? Yes, there's restore state, which is something that some integrations implemented. It's based on an integration per integration basis. Because if we can query the state, that's what we should do. So we only really restore the state in case it's an optimistic device. So an optimistic device is where we assume the commands we send to it are successful, like a TV, right? You can press volume up, but we don't know the actual volume of the TV. So once we know the volume and we send volume up, we can assume volume up was successful. And so we increase the volume state. But yeah, though that it's per integration.
Rudy, it's finished processing, so you can just get that record and it will show you the total installations, right? You don't need to count them. The data is already there.
By the time it's done counting, we already have new data.
So Tech Junkie is asking about the secrets file changes. So
that's a good
thing.
thing
I completely forgot to mention that. So this is a good question, Tech Junkie. So we've made a change to the way we load secret files, in that if you load a YAML file with our load YAML utility in Home Assistant, you need to specify if you want to load secrets, yes or no. If you don't specify that you want to load secrets, and that's a new feature, then you're not going to be able to load secrets. So previously, a lot of places that were loading YAML were getting all access to our secrets. And I mean, it's not per se unsafe, because there's obviously code that's running on your computer, and so it already could access the secrets. But it was now also being loaded in a ton of places. So we actually made it so that you have to pass it in. And so some custom integrations are actually breaking it. Lovelace Gen, Dwayne's dashboard. What was there? HomeKit Flux or something?
HomeKit
Infused.
Oh, HomeKit Infused. Yeah, so those custom integrations, they actually mess with our load YAML utility, which is like, don't do that, please. But some of them have already fixed it, and you just update to the latest version. We don't currently have our own plans to expand secrets loading, but this is definitely, now that it's nicely abstracted, it would be very easy to push secrets into a different data storage. But that's something that if you want to, I mean, you can do that yourself. I mean, if you write your own Python script to bootstrap Home Assistant, you can pass that in, but we don't currently have those plans ourselves. Yeah. Okay, but what we're doing with this analytics, like we keep talking this whole release 2 hours about analytics.
At this speed, we can just do 0.5 release notes as well.
Yeah.
We have to give it an end time. So how many minutes do we give it?
4.
4 minutes. Okay.
25. 4. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Then now we wait 4 minutes.
Yeah.
In silence.
In silence. I have no idea what's happening.
So I just get a DM from Ludius. He says, no need to keep waiting, and I have an idea on what failed.
Oh, yeah, there's an error. Okay. I see it in my DM.
Oh, is he?
I don't see a specific what I see. Something went wrong.
Okay, well, so analytics is broken. So it was we had a good 2-hour run.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for all the data. We couldn't handle it.
This is why we do betas. This is really cool.
We need more beta testers.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Ludius is first going to grab some dinner because he was waiting on that for the stream, and then. So anyway, analytics will come back up. Don't forget to like and subscribe on that bell, and
still sign up for analytics.
Oh yeah,
still enable it, absolutely, and do your upgrades in general.
Yes,
do your upgrades and wait. Take your time for this upgrade. It can take a bit.
Yes, database migration.
Yes.
All right. everybody have a good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are in the world. And we'll be back next month, definitely, for the next release party, as always. And yeah, talk to all of you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.